Hello, van lifers and other traveling people. You don't have to be in a van, or you could be in a bus or not even travel. That's fine. Welcome to episode 8 of Campers and Vans Getting Coffee. This episode I have on Christianna of Mes Amies Soaps. Mes Amies Soaps is her company that she started a couple years ago while she was still on active duty in the Navy. And Christianna creates all natural soaps on the road from in her van. So it's pretty cool. She talks about how she's sort of been able to set up a little factory in her van and create these micro batches of soaps. And her business is doing really great. So we talk about all that and how that's possible for you, maybe, and it might inspire you, which would be cool. And we also talk about why she likes hammocks and how to be safe as a solo female traveler and why she doesn't think, you should let any of that stuff hold you back. So it's pretty cool. It's very inspiring. Christianna is awesome. And I also want to apologize because I kind of get off to like a slow start in this interview. Just listening to it again, I was a bit tired from the night before. I had a big night before, so I apologize for that. You're going to have to deal with me asking questions like over and over again. I asked Christianna a couple things that she already said. So apologize for that. It takes me probably 10 or 15 minutes to really get into the groove and start having a coherent conversation. So apologize, Christianna, for that, but you can enjoy my slobberiness. But that's it. We'll just get into the interview. So here is Christianna of Mes Amies Soaps. Hello, Christianna. Thanks for being on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Super excited to have you on. So why don't we just start with sort of if you could just give us your background, your story, because you kind of have an interesting, cool story about how you got started and you have this soaps business. So let's just kind of hear about that.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm originally from Oregon, and when I was 20, I joined the Navy. I was an Arabic translator, and then for the last year of my Navy career, I was a career counselor. But I really wasn't happy in the military, actually. It just wasn't right for me. And so in 2016, I started my own natural, vegan, cruelty-free bath and body product, which has expanded from there. And how that got started actually was my best friend and I had gone on a trip to New Orleans in Louisiana, and I had bought like some handmade bar of soap there. And I was like, oh, this is actually like really good for my skin. Like it doesn't dry me out like that harsh, like factory stuff that you buy in the store that like leaves your skin feeling really tight afterwards. And so I started doing a bunch of research about what's in our skincare products. And I learned that like American women on average put over 150 potentially toxic chemicals onto their skin, which is your largest organ and absorbs about 70% of what you put on it. And so I was like, oh, wow, that's not good. And I realized how important it was to be conscious of not only like what I'm putting in my body, but what I'm putting on my body as well. So I was active duty military and starting my own business, which was pretty stressful, honestly, which was ironic for having like a self-care type business. And I was actually like stressed out while running it.
Yeah.
Which really made me realize more and more the importance of self-care and of taking care of myself first, because, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. Very cool. That makes sense. So, wow. So what is the name of your soap company?
It's Mes Amies Soaps, and Mes Amies means my friends in French. More specifically, it actually means like my female friends. It's the feminine form of it.
Okay, cool. And so it's all zero waste. It's it's all organic, or how did you describe it?
So it's all natural. There's no artificial fragrances, coloring, preservatives, toxic chemicals. As well, I'm certified vegan and cruelty-free by PETA. And yes, I do use zero waste packaging in my business.
Dang, cool. You got like everything checked off there. That's awesome.
Yeah, all of the values that are important to me, I wanted to make sure that they were part of my business as well.
Right. Very cool. So, I mean, how is the soap made? Do you make it yourself, or how's that happen?
I do. So when I first started, I was making it in my little apartment kitchen in my free time outside of the Navy. But now that I'm living in a van, I make soap in a van. So I do what's called the hot process, which versus cold process. Hot process is where you're actually cooking the soap, which speeds up the chemical process because, basic science, oil and water don't mix, but those are the two out of three primary ingredients in soap, the third being sodium hydroxide, which is also known as lye, and people will probably recognize that from either Fight Club or Breaking Bad. But yeah, so I make it, I use a crock pot for hot process, and I make it in my van with the solar panels for electricity, as well as I make other products too, not just soap. So also bath and body products.
Wow, sweet. So you're probably not using human fat like they do in what does that call in Fight Club, right?
Fight Club, yeah. Gosh, if I had like $5 for every time somebody brought up Fight Club when I said I made soap, like I wouldn't even have to make soap anymore.
Oh my gosh. Cool. So I think you said it, but what are the ingredients that go into like the basic soaps again? How does that work?
The three main ingredients you need to make soap are water, oil, or fat, and sodium hydroxide, also known as lye. And that sodium hydroxide is what actually allows the oil and water to mix together and become a solid.
Okay, I see. Okay, that makes sense. Dang, so you do this all in your van. How many... I mean, I guess because you have all these different products, but let's just kind of stay to like the main soap, I guess, because that might be easiest to talk about. Like how much of that can you make in one batch, and like how long does a batch take? Like I'm just so curious about how that works and how you can do it and store it all in your van,
I definitely have to make things in micro batches. So it requires planning ahead, definitely, because I do wholesale orders. I've worked with about 17 subscription boxes, and then my products are in currently 5 stores, with more. Every couple of weeks, I'm adding another stockist to my wholesale accounts. So it requires planning ahead. I make everything in very small micro batches. I can make 34 bars of soap at once in one batch. And one batch takes me about 3 hours from start to finish, including like all the prep work and cleanup and whatnot. So yeah, it definitely requires a lot of scheduling. And what I like to say is I don't really live in my van or work in my van. I work out of it because I usually like have a table that I like pull out and set up when I'm like camped out somewhere boondocking, and kind of with a 6-foot table being able to spread my stuff out and work more, whereas I wouldn't necessarily be able to keep it all in the van making it and whatnot. So, and then I go through it very quickly. So I'm selling it almost immediately after making it and constantly making more. So I have some room for storage, but it's usually just a consistent cycle of selling, making.
Jeez, that is cool. Man, well, congrats. Sounds like it's going awesome. You're in 5 stores. You've been in all these boxes. So that's super cool. Congrats on that. And then, so I'm curious, how do you do most of your sales? Do you have like a wholesaler that you send the soaps to that you like mail them to, or do you sell them directly out of your van? How do you do all that stuff?
I sell directly, primarily online with e-commerce. I have both an Etsy shop and my own website set up through Shopify. And then I also, like I said, I have a couple stores. I work with subscription boxes. I'll do events here and there, it's really helpful living in a van, being able to travel all over the country. I just did 2 events last month, like home and lifestyle shows or like arts and craft fairs. So I have a couple different like platforms to sell my products. And then as well, I have some really amazing fans on Instagram. And so I'll post about like where I'm headed to next or where I'm currently at. And every so often, it'll just happen to be where somebody who's really interested in what I'm doing happens to live. And so I'll meet up with them in person and, get coffee and chat with them. And then, yeah, sometimes even selling right out of my van, just opening up my boxes and cupboards and letting them pick whatever they want right then and there.
That's so cool. That's awesome that you can meet people. And yeah, your Instagram's cool. I checked it out where you basically have your theme going where you just have your soap in the corner, like all your different destinations that you've gone to. It's cool.
Yeah, I do hashtag traveling soap. So I'm always taking pictures everywhere I go. And yeah, that's kind of the theme of my Instagram now.
The traveling soap. Awesome. Well, cool. I like how it's not a lot of people, I think when they're kind of thinking about living this nomad lifestyle and getting into a van and stuff, they think that the only option is kind of an online business. And I mean, you are an online business, like it would be tough for you to operate probably without the internet, but you're different in the fact that you're a little factory and producing stuff in your van, which is cool. Like I wouldn't even have really thought that was possible. It's cool that you're doing that. So I don't know. I think it might be nice for for folks listening to kind of think of other things that you might be able to do rather than just like, graphic design or video or online marketing, stuff like that. You can actually like create products and build stuff in your van. So that's super cool that you're doing that. And then since you're kind of like an expert on all this stuff and I have you on, I want to ask a question about like, you talk about putting all this stuff on your skin and everything. And I totally get that, but I've never really, looked into it. I just use like the Walmart brands of stuff. So it's probably pretty bad, but, I'm curious about like deodorants or anything. Do you have any info on those specifically?
Oh gosh. I was just preaching to my little sister a couple of days ago about deodorant actually and how bad for you store-bought antiperspirants are. A lot of them contain aluminum as that like actual antiperspirant factor. And so what it's doing is like it's these little tiny microscopic flakes of aluminum that's literally clogging your pores and preventing you from sweating. And that's not good at all. And there's inconclusive evidence. It definitely still needs more research done, but there have been some studies that show a possibility of, a correlation between aluminum and breast cancer, as well as aluminum in the body and possibly causing Alzheimer's too. So like with deodorant specifically, I would highly recommend that you switch to a natural deodorant, which it can be really hard to make a transition to natural deodorant when your body's not used to it and you're not used to like sweating potentially. For me, I tried so many different brands. And what I found worked best for me was literally just spraying magnesium oil on my armpits. Like one ingredient, that's it. It works perfectly.
Wow. Magnesium oil, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And does that sort of like prevent odor or like help with sweating or what does that do?
Both. Yeah. So no body odor, and magnesium as well. Like I said, you absorb about 70% of what you put onto your skin. I believe about 80% of Americans are deficient in magnesium to begin with. So not only is it a natural deodorizer, but it's also helping your body get magnesium that you may be deficient in as well.
Okay.
It's kind of a 2-in-1 perk.
Very cool. So let's say someone is like me, like we'll just use me, I guess, for an example, but I'm sure there's a lot of other people like me where they just use like the store brand stuff. What should we do? Should we just start maybe with buying like a bar of soap from you that we can start showering with, or like rather than, I mean, like what, I'm just asking how we should get started, I guess. Do you have any recommendations on that?
Definitely doing your own research first, because I could preach about like what I've learned all day long, but until, you actually read it for yourself and see how serious it is, you might be lacking the actual motivation to stick through a transition into more natural products. So after doing some research yourself, just going to like your local farmer's market or going online and finding a company where you can order. I don't make deodorant myself, but someone that I am very good friends with, and actually my products are in her store. Her name is Stephanie, and she runs Twinkle Apothecary. She makes amazing natural deodorants that come in cardboard tubes, so no plastic whatsoever, which is also something that's really important to me. But just finding a brand that works for you. I know Gaia Guy works really well. Schmidt's deodorant, Meow Meow Tweet is another brand, but they're kind of expensive. So, or just going on Amazon like I did and trying magnesium oil to make a transition. And then with soaps and whatnot, soaps, I think you can pretty much always find at your local farmer's market or at like a local health food store.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. You can, that stuff's always around. I've seen it, but yeah, I've never really taken the time to research it. Do you have any, like recommended resources, blogs or Instagram accounts or people or anything that you would recommend we go check out?
What is it called? Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. They talk about all sorts of toxic ingredients and chemicals, and they've actually like done all the research for you, broken it down, and they rate not only individual ingredients, but they rate products that you'll find at your grocery store or whatnot. They have what's called the Skin Deep Guide to Cosmetics, but they also not just like makeup, but they're rating like shampoos, conditioners, deodorants, all of that. They talk about they'll look at your drinking water for your zip code and tell you what kind of toxic chemicals might be in that. They rate like cleaning supplies around your house and all of that. So I would definitely recommend checking out ewg.org to get started.
Okay, perfect. ewg.org. Awesome. I'm going to check them out. Cool. Well, thanks for that info. That's awesome. And I was looking on your website too, and you have a thing on your homepage where it says, where is it? Let me pull it up here. It says there's 1,245 meals provided to those in need. What is that about?
So I donate 10% of all of my orders to a nonprofit organization called Pledgeling, and then they turn around and they work with hundreds of different organizations and charities around the world, and they turn that money into directly feeding meals to the homeless here in America. That's the organization that I've chosen to sponsor, but anyone who's involved with e-commerce, I'd recommend that they look into working with them, because you can choose a whole bunch of different causes to put your money towards, and it's giving back to charity is just really important to me. So I wanted to make sure that it was another one of the, the characteristics of my business. So that's why I do 10% of everything that I make to help feeding the homeless.
Awesome. That's so cool, man. Well, this is just awesome. Your business, you started this in 2016, you said?
Yes.
While you were still in the Navy for another year. Is that right?
Yep.
Man, and it's only been a couple years and you've already done all this. It's cool. Well, congrats. It seems like you're really killing it. You're in all these boxes and these stores. It's just awesome. So I'm really happy for you. Congrats on all that.
Thank you so much. Cool.
So let's talk about your van life a little bit now. So you live in your van full time, but you had your first van, but then you just sold that and bought a new van. Is that right?
Yes, I haven't even gotten my new van from the dealership yet. There were a couple things that they had to fix up. So right now I'm vanless. I'm crashing at my dad's house this week. But yeah, so back August of last year, I was still active duty military. I bought a 2009 Chevrolet Express van. It was originally a passenger van, and I took all the seats out, converted it myself. Took me from about August to November to convert it because, of course, I was active duty. I was running my own business. So like van conversion was like number 3 on my priority list. So it took me longer than it should have. But then of course it was a lemon and it didn't really work out very well for me. So yeah, I just bought a new one, a 2014 Ram ProMaster, and I'm so excited to get started. I'll be picking it up from the dealership tomorrow, and I can't wait to have learned from like, not necessarily mistakes, but just things that I wasn't even aware of when I was starting out in van life, and to be able to like do a better layout that'll fit my needs and my business needs in this newer van.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's something I've kind of heard from a couple people who have been on the show, and even others, that like a lot of people almost do like a test van, like their first van, and then they buy a new one, and then they know exactly what they want then on that second one.
Yeah.
So what were some of the features and components that you want to have on this new van that you've learned from your old van?
Well, so I couldn't stand up straight in my Chevy Express, and I realized so quickly how much I hated that. So that was the number one thing. I mean, besides a van that, didn't have mechanical problems,
Yeah.
but being able to stand up straight, I was like, I am in my mid-20s. I don't want to have back problems already. I need to be able to stand up. Like, I want this to feel more like a home. It doesn't feel like a home when you're stooped over all the time. Let's see, for a while I didn't have a bed. I had a hammock just to save space, and I loved it. I'd never once slept in a hammock before, having one in my van to save space. And I found out like it's so good for your posture and for your body when you're sleeping. And I'm still debating like whether or not I want to build a bed in this one or if I want to keep a hammock. I don't know. That's something that I'm going to have to make up my mind here soon about.
Oh, interesting. So real quick on the hammock, what kind of hammock is it? Is it just like one that hangs from each side and it's like a kind of like a little cocoon type of thing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's one of those, standard like outdoor camping hammocks that I have. I had it strung up like slightly diagonally, using what had formerly been one of the seatbelt, oh gosh, what's the word? Like harness? I'm not sure. In the very back, and then up to one of the front seatbelt, because I knew that those would be rated for being able to withhold a lot of weight on them. Mm-hmm. So that's why I use those two support areas to hang mine up.
Okay, interesting. So you said that's really good for your back and your posture, sleeping like that?
It is, surprisingly. You wouldn't think of it because you're kind of like curled up in a way, like. But the difference is when you're laying on a mattress, your body your weight is being put on all these different pressure points, but in a hammock, like your weight is perfectly evenly suspended. And it's actually kind of good for you to have your feet slightly elevated above your heart while you're sleeping too. It helps your body circulate your blood and oxygen better. And I've read that, I don't have these problems, but I've read that it can really help with arthritis or restless leg syndrome and whatnot to sleep in a hammock. So I guess it's becoming more and more popular. People are even putting hammocks in their houses too, instead of having a mattress.
Wow, that's cool. I have never heard of that, but that's awesome. It kind of makes sense when you think about it. And then in a van too, it's perfect because would you just kind of hang it up diagonally and then when you're not sleeping throughout the day, you just unhook one side and then kind of hang it so it's just in the corner or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. And then you're saving all that space. I see so many people that they have these van builds where their bed takes up half of their van. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, look at all the wasted space though. But then again, like you said earlier, like I have a physical like product business, so I need more space than probably the average van lifer who might be like a digital nomad.
That's true. Yeah, I guess so. But still, that's cool. Like, I think people are always looking for more space in their van. So that's cool. You could do that. And it may even be healthier and better for you to sleep that way. You might sleep better. That's cool. So do you just sleep on your back then, throughout the whole night then?
Yeah. And I'm not a back sleeper. I hate sleeping on my back. I always sleep on my side. And you can, if you position the hammock and your body within the hammock, you can sleep on your side and whatnot, but it's best for you to be sleeping on your back. Apparently when you sleep on your side, depending on which side you're sleeping on, you can actually be moving your organs or like squishing different parts of your body in a way that they shouldn't be squished throughout the night. So it's best to get those health benefits of a hammock to be sleeping on your back.
Okay. So now you had the van. So would you say, is there one item or feature on your van that you just can't live without?
Solar panels.
Yeah.
I cannot live without electricity. That definitely by far. I went without a fridge and a stove for about a month, and it actually wasn't that hard. But then again, I do eat mainly plant-based vegan to begin with. So it just meant going to the grocery store more often since I didn't have a fridge, but it actually wasn't that bad. But the electricity, I can't live without it.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Wow, cool. So in this new, in the new van that you have, Are you going to be building it all out yourself? Are you going to have people helping you, or are you hiring a company to do it, or how you doing it?
It'll mainly be myself and then my boyfriend as well, who's been traveling with me the last couple weeks. So we'll be working on it together. He's going to do like putting up the solar panels and all of the wiring and whatnot, because I don't know anything about that stuff. And then we'll be working on the actual like construction together. And that's why I said, like, I got to decide soon if I want to have hammocks or have an actual bed now that my boyfriend is traveling with me. That factors into my decision as well, of course.
Yeah, totally. So you're kind of about all this, minimalism stuff and reducing waste and everything. And I mean, that's kind of what the whole living in a van thing is like too. So I'm curious if in like the last few years since you've been doing this, have you become better at saying no to anything such as like distractions or products or anything like that? Or are there any like new realizations or approaches that have helped you kind of say no and like things that you thought that you might have needed, but maybe that you don't need, that you like ended up actually not needing at all, or anything like that you've kind of discovered from living in the van and having this company?
Oh, in regards to consumerism, absolutely. Like there's so many things that I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was spending money on that. And having such little storage space and having more of an appreciation for what I do spend money on. So yeah, I've definitely learned how to say no to products, and saying no, especially not just to products, but to the marketing for them too. These big companies, they do such a fantastic job at marketing it. Like, oh, get this and you'll be beautiful and rich and successful and everyone will love you. Like they really like play at your emotions, and we don't even realize it a lot of the times. I'm definitely still working on saying no to distractions, though. I spend way too much time on Instagram, and I need to cut that down and kind of manage my time a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that stuff can definitely be tough. So you said that you just you try to avoid marketing in general. Is that right?
Well, I don't think you can avoid marketing in general in this day and age. It's everywhere. Even when you're driving, you've got billboards and you've got, signs and all these different things. You've got advertisements on the radio. You've got advertisements on the podcast that you listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily avoiding marketing, but just being aware of the way that they're marketing it towards you, and online especially. Like it's not just a general advertisement, it's specific, it's targeted to you and to your interests. So being aware of that and like not falling for it. Like I'll sometimes be like, oh my God, I want that. And I'm like, no, I'm going to wait. Let me think about this for like a week or a month before I buy it. And then usually at the end of that time period, I'm like, yeah, I don't need that. Look, I've been just fine without it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. Where like you get caught up in the moment and like you get really excited about this new thing, but then if you just wait like even a day or a week, you realize like it doesn't really matter and you don't need it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So let's kind of talk about your daily life a little bit. So what was the first week in your van like?
The first week, I took it out on like a test drive maiden voyage up and down the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is on the East Coast. And I'd driven it before, the year before. And so it was absolutely beautiful, but it was cold. So I realized that like I needed to up my insulation, because I was like shivering every night, needing to figure out a better solution for that. But I think what I loved the most was finally hitting the road. I was on what's called terminal leave, which is like you take all of your vacation that's saved up right at the end before your contract with the military expires. And then like you just kind of are rolling right out of the military basically. So I was on, using up my last little bit of vacation from the military and about to be, out and be a normal civilian again. And just the feeling of complete freedom, like being able to drive with no destination, no deadline, being able to just slow down and enjoy the scenery and taking the side roads because you saw a sign pointing towards something cool. Like that's what I remember about my first week in the van. Just how exhilarating it was to have that freedom. And I still feel that way today. And I hope that feeling never fades away.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's the big, bonus and incentive for living in a van, is that you can do that and choose whatever you want to do. Yeah. So before you said now you're going to be, or your boyfriend has been traveling with you for the past few weeks or so. Were you alone in the van before that?
Yeah, I was.
Was that like any issue with like security or lonesomeness or anything? Did you have any issues or reservations about that?
Not lonesomeness whatsoever. I am very much an introvert and I enjoy my alone time. So it's actually been more of a transition into like having somebody like in my personal bubble 24/7. That's been a huge change in our relationship that we've had to adjust to, going from long distance to like always seeing each other constantly. As for security, it is nicer to have somebody else, especially a man there with you, because there were some situations where I'd run into a store and then somebody would follow me through the parking lot. And so, have to walk back into the store and like ask an employee to walk out with me or whatnot. And just some situations here and there. So I carry, pepper spray on my keychain, and I have one of those like emergency apps on my phone. So it can be a little scary sometimes if you're in a bad area, but just listening to your instincts and staying, out of like dark areas, staying where the people are was what worked best for me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just kind of being aware and cautious about stuff. Did you have any trouble with like finding campsites at night and being alone in that respect?
No, not at all, actually. Like, once you're away from everybody, you're away from the good people and the bad people. So that wasn't bad. There was a campsite that I was at just recently. I was in Washington, and like it was getting really late, and I realized I wasn't going to be able, because every morning I kind of plan out like where I'm going to be spending that night. And I realized just with some schedule setbacks and whatnot that I was not going to be able to make it to that destination. I was getting tired. It was really dark. The road condition was really bad. And so I found a spot to just pull over off some side road in like a forest basically, and got out and, stretching my legs and whatnot, and realized that there's like this huge pile of like probably bear poop. And I was like, well, I'm going to go back in the van and lock the doors because I don't want to get eaten by a bear. So that's the other problem with being out in the middle of nowhere, is then you have like big animals. But of course, you're not in a tent, you're in a van. So don't be dumb and like leave food out or whatever, and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I don't know. That's good to hear that you haven't really, that you didn't let it stop you from like traveling alone. Because I know that's sort of an issue that a lot of people have, is they don't really want to travel alone, and they're worried about the security, but also the lonesomeness part of it. So I don't know. I think it's good that you just did it and you were smart and, stay aware of stuff, but and you were fine. Everything worked out, and it, it's good. Cool.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. People are really concerned about females traveling alone. And that annoys me. Like, why not? It's 2018. What's wrong with traveling alone? I think as long as you're being cautious and using common sense, there's nothing wrong with it. Before I lived in a van, I was still traveling all over by myself, going on vacations, going overseas by myself, and just being smart about it. But still, there'd be people who are like, oh, well, where's your boyfriend? Where's your husband? Oh my gosh, you're traveling alone? Aren't you scared? No, seriously, just use common sense and you will be fine. And no one should let fear hold them back, or like all this, we're constantly reading all these bad things in the news. Don't let that stop you from going out and following your dreams and exploring the world, because most people are not bad. Like, of course, there's always a few bad apples, but the majority of people are really amazing, and you're missing out on so much if you don't go see the world and meet new people and experience new cultures.
Cool. Well, yeah, I like that you said that. Thanks for saying that. I'm sure that'll help a lot of people just to hear that, and from someone who's done it even too. So that's great. So let's talk about food. So where do you eat? How do you prepare your food? What's your whole system for that?
I am a very picky eater, so I tend to eat the same like 10 meals over and over, which makes my grocery shopping really easy and really cheap. But it doesn't really make me like a good person to give advice, unfortunately, for people that are like foodies. I just didn't get to it today. I have a smoothie for breakfast. And then usually like a PB&J or whatnot, some sort of sandwich or salad for lunch. And then, like black bean burgers or chickpea sandwich or like a Greek pasta salad or whatever for dinner. And I'll usually make a bunch of it so that I have leftovers and, only have to cook every couple days because I'm still finishing off what I had. So just a lot of easy things that don't require a lot of dishes or a lot of cleanup or too many ingredients either. Like I'm not going to sit there and buy all these like crazy exotic things because I don't have the space for that. So I stick with what I know and just keep it simple and keep it healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. That's a good idea to just kind of have like a list of 10 to 15 meals that you like and that are healthy and that you can always do, and just kind of stick to those. Because, I mean, when you're living in a van and space is tight, that might just be the easiest way to do that. And also for your budget. And then, it's like, it totally makes sense. And also what I kind of like about it too is I do the same thing for my breakfast and lunch, where I have the same thing basically every day. And so I know I just go to the grocery store, buy the same stuff all the time. And then during the day, I don't even have to think about it. Like I just get up and make my smoothie, I make my lunch, and that's it. And I eat it. And then at dinner time is where I might go out with some friends and have something to eat, or might make something different on my own. But that's where I kind of get to have like the fun and maybe eat not as healthy too. But I always just have my breakfast and my lunch that are always the same and healthy and a good like base for the day.
Yeah, meal planning, not only does it help your budget, but they estimate that about 40% of food in America is wasted. And so by like planning your meals and only buying what you're going to use, you're helping reduce some of that food waste. And then, of course, I do like to go out and eat. I use happycow.net, which helps you find like vegan or vegetarian restaurants like all over the country. So when I do want to like go treat myself or whatever, I'll find somewhere and have a nice meal that, I wouldn't have even known how to make myself or wanted to bother making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important sometimes to just go out and have like a nice meal and treat yourself a little bit, just for a little variation and just to mix things up a bit,
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let's talk about how you find your places to camp. Do you have any resources or apps that you use to help you find campsites?
Yes, definitely. I use 3 different apps, usually like all 3 every day, to kind of compare different reviews, and they don't have all the exact same locations. So I use All Stays, I use Boondocking, and then I don't know how to say this one, Campendium? Gosh, I don't know how to say it. Campendium.
Okay, yeah, Campendium, probably something like that.
Yeah, so I use those 3, and they help me find free campsites to stay at every night.
Right on, free campsites. So have you ever been in a situation where you can't find a free spot, or is there a lot of availability for that stuff?
It really depends on the region. I think I'm in Idaho right now, and I think like out here on the west side of the country, there's so much land. There's state parks, national parks, publicly managed lands. So it's pretty easy to find places out here, not so much back east necessarily. But if you can't find like a boondocking, like out in the wilderness campsite, there's always like Walmart or Home Depot, Lowe's, Cracker Barrel. So they're not the most Insta-worthy Instagram places to sleep, but at least you have, like, you can run inside, pick up something that you need, grab a snack, use the bathroom and whatnot in there if there's nothing else available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. So those apps were Campendium, or however you say it, Boondocking, and All Stays.
Yes.
Cool.
Those are on my iPhone. I don't know if they're all available on Android, though.
Okay, cool. But that's awesome for people to use. I'm going to check those out myself. Man, well, Christianna, this is awesome. I really appreciate having you on here. So just one last thing. Do you have any parting thoughts or suggestions to someone who is living the van life or potentially thinking about doing it? Do you have anything that you would want to say or impart to them?
Oh, gosh. For somebody who's embarking on van life, I would say, like, it's definitely not what you see on Instagram. Like, don't go into it with that kind of expectation. Mm-hmm. Go into it because it's what you want, because it's the lifestyle that you want to have, and make the most of it. I think the keys for van life are having both patience and gratitude. You're going to really learn to appreciate the things that you've always taken for granted, like your running water, electricity, having a bathroom, being able to do your laundry with the push of a button, and patience too. You're going to break down. Like, it's going to happen whether you run out of gas or, some sort of engine problem, or, you get stuck because of traffic or construction. Like, just learning to go with the flow is so important for not getting stressed out and just, be a hippie, that kind of like going with the flow, laid back, down to earth. It's so important. And then I guess the other thing I would say is, don't travel if you don't appreciate learning about other people's way of life and their culture, because I've met people on the road who are doing it and they're not actually getting outside of their own personal bubble. And I think that's really important. What is the point of traveling if you're not seeing things with new eyes? So definitely get out of that mindset before you take off on the road.
Oh, cool. Interesting. I like that little bit of information right there on that tip. That's cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. So again, where can we connect with you? Where can we visit Mes Amies Soaps? And can we find you on Instagram?
Of course, yeah. So my website, it's www.mesamiessoaps.com, and that's MESAMIESSOAPS.com. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well as Mes Amies Soaps. And then you can also follow my personal Instagram, which is at a hippie in a van. And that's hippie, HIPPIE.
Perfect. All one word?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'll link to that stuff too in the description for folks to click on. Okay. But wow, that's perfect. I'm just so happy for you, Christianna. It's awesome that you've got this business going and you're able to support yourself living in this van, and you can produce everything right from inside the van. I just think that's the coolest thing ever. And just the way that you're doing this and donating 10% of your profits, and it's just great. So I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing all your info and knowledge with all this and with me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Travis. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey guys, this is Travis again. Just wanted to touch on a few things. Episode's over, so you can just turn this off and shut it off now, but had a couple things I wanted to share with you. If you want to listen, if you want to connect with me. Sorry, you might be able to hear my puppy Murphy in the background squeaking on her toy. But just want to share how you guys could connect with us at Campers and Vans Getting Coffee. If you would like, we are on Instagram at Campers and Vans Getting Coffee. We have a website called campersandvansgettingcoffee.com. We're on Facebook at Campers and Vans Getting Coffee, and we're even on Twitter at Campers and Vans Not Getting Coffee. So Twitter is just at Campers and Vans. So if you use Twitter, I'm not really big into Twitter, but you can connect with us there if you want to. That is about it. I just want to say that I appreciate you for listening and appreciate you being here, listening to the end if you are listening to this. And I would really appreciate and love, and it really helps us out if you can leave a review for this podcast. So on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this on, if you could just drop a rating and a quick review. Doesn't even have to be good. You could just be honest, but any sort of rating review really helps. Super appreciate that. And give me any tips, any thoughts, stuff you think we can improve on, or what you like, or questions that you'd like me to ask, or anything like that, or guests that you'd like to have on the show, anything like that. And you could also send me an email if you want to hello@campersandvansgettingcoffee.com. We have an email address, so you can send it there. So thanks again. Thank you for being here and being a part of this. Super appreciate you. And that's it. Have a good one. Bye.